Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. And we are zooming in and focusing in today on a great viewer comment, which I'm going to elaborate and expound on. But before we get started, I want to give a huge shout out to those of you who have recently made a donation to the Peace and Harmony channel. Thank you so much for your contribution and the value added to this channel. It's viewers like you who make a donation that let me know that we're hitting on some cylinders, that we're hitting on some salient points, that are fibers within the being that can make a life change for the positive, and that we're at least extrapolating some information so you can see the cause that has created the effect, or identify some of the gears that are working in your interpersonal or intrapersonal relationships that you have discovered. We really want to seep those out. So thank you so much for your donations. It keeps me motivated and inspired to keep showing up and providing content and keeping it fluid. And also, we've recently had a donation to the channel from the GoFundMe page, gofundme.com. I was at a request of another international viewer. We are with global reach here, so we do have viewers in other countries, including Australia, including Turkey, including Germany. We are really even in Africa, in Ireland, in Italy, in France. So I've had a number of international correspondences here as well from viewers who they are experiencing this. So please, thank you so much for making your donations there. It's at the Peace and Harmony channel, yes, tab on the GoFundMe. And if there's other viewers who have received value from this channel and you would like to give back, please feel free to make a donation on the About page. There's a little PayPal Donate Now button where you can absolutely positively make a donation. So I want to zoom in and focus in today on a great viewer comment that what makes it sometimes so difficult about weeding through and sorting through the specifics of an emotionally manipulative and gripping relationship with someone who really has their talents in you, like a narcissist, like a psychopath, someone who just kind of ravages through your life without remorse. Someone who has created an indelible feeling of hurt or betrayal, and you have really then caused you to turn against yourself. And you're really kind of sorting through the dynamics, and you're seeing the role that yourself has played with allowing some of this to occur. In other words, not seeing things that has come up, or realizing that you were in a situation where you could have done something, but you were so enamored or weakened, and you could not really move proactively. You could not take the action steps moving forward. And that is really when healing becomes like a double-edged sword. In other words, it's the right thing to do, but there's a hurt that comes with moving forward. And so it really is like a sleeping giant. If you do not take control and come out of the denial of this relationship, it's going to be like a sleeping giant and then just rear its head when you least expect it. And it's going to become even more aggressive. In other words, it's going to become more profound. The longer you allow it to not become attended to or faced, you are going to have more difficult consequences. And one of the goals here at the Peace and Harmony channel is to get results, not through 3 years or 5 years, but really dealing with it up front and confronting this, because otherwise it'll just continue to seep through other areas of your life that is going to roll over. And so you don't want to have that sort of toxic influence through other areas of your life. You don't want to have this kind of spilling over into other areas where you could be moving forward. So when we talk about the hurt, it's like, have you ever heard the saying, if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. So I really think of this statement, and I'm sorry, I'm kind of fumbling for my words to kind of pull that out. But if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. In other words, if you don't make that little bit of serious investment in yourself, if you don't look at it with some sort of, wow, this is really impacting me, not only how I feel, but how I think, how I behave, and what interests I pursue, what jobs I pursue, what workshops I pursue, what other educational communities that I can become part of, how much can I step up and really move forward here. So it tends to be like a lead blanket that just kind of will hold you back. And it will keep you from not seeing the light or not penetrating you at your soul level where you need to make those changes. And when I talk about that, I'm talking about the subconscious and really your belief system. So it is really getting the pain that gets the gears rolling. You need to feel a little bit of that and a little bit of down. In other words, to make the change, you're going to need to go through those phases, those trials in your life to get to the results, to get to really the positive aha moments where it's a shift of energy within you and you're able then to see things clearly. And then all of a sudden it's like you have a release. You have a release of the feeling of being either numbed out, not feeling interest, feeling apathetic, feeling that, woe is me, the pity party after going through or exposing this relationship. And sometimes the exposure can be so gut-wrenching because you realize the fact that this will not change. This person is kind of a permanent fixture. It's not going to, they're not going to get better. They're not going to come at you and ask you for mercy. You're the one who has to be in the driver's seat. You're the one who has to, do the repair work. And it's really a matter of looking at things and seeing the wire connections and saying, okay, I see where this happened. And when you see sort of that breakage coming at you again, in other words, those manipulative individuals who are going to lie without remorse, who are going to wreak havoc without regret. They do not, have a conscience about who and what they attack. So it has nothing to do with you. It's just they're going to pull energy from whoever it is that they need or is easy to, and easy to infiltrate their mind or get them to do certain things. It is all a power trip. So when you're emerging through the exposure, and becoming like a detective, realize that a lot of people say, well, I just wish I could go back to feeling ignorant. I wish I could just go back the way it was and be in this regress state where we were just in the love bombing phase and we were still kind of fighting, but at least we still had it. So a lot of people really wish that they could go back. And really, the news I have for you is to understand that it does get better and that it's kind of like you think that there's not going to be any joy or relationships or experiences for you to be had. You can't really feel that yet. You can't feel the texture of joy within you. It is coming. It is a matter of time where your consciousness is making the connections, and it is realizing that the effort that you put through, the effort meaning the saying no, the effort meaning changing your routine, the effort meaning giving yourself a chance to refresh and take your recovery date, following up on an interest, getting your hands into something that is stimulating for you. We talked about how difficult it is when people are feeling numb and yet they don't know how to or resensitize themselves or rehabilitate themselves. So you need to kind of look at and identify your senses where you are then feeling the uplift and not just the pain. The pain is something you can shift from, but really look at what it is and learn to use the tool of, I would recommend, cognitive reframing. In other words, looking at the pain, looking at the experience as a blessing and a lesson. So, in other words, it's gotten you to steer your path now where you're a little bit more cautious. You're looking at the pebbles on the ground. You're not so willing to take a fall. You're becoming more sensitive to yourself. So this has actually made you more adept, keen, and sharp to what's going on. And so if you are interpreting this, kind of slowing down and looking at things as painful, then I would really suggest you use the tool of cognitive reframing and look at it with gratitude that you are becoming more keen and sharp to what you do have as a positive in your life, and looking, and because you can't really see it when you're mired in pain. And when you do this, as you change your tempo, it's really saying that, okay, I've now learned to cut this out, but this is creating a whole new opening in my life to fill with a new. So rather than saying it's pain, it's empty, looking at it as a fertile ground where you can be like a maverick, a pioneer, and alchemizing and getting that positive energy going. If you look at it as just pain, oftentimes people are saying, well, it's never going to stop. I'm never going to have that thrill. I'm never going to have the excitement going on in my life. I'm never going to feel that warmth again. It's, looking back at your life with regrets, when you turn it around and you really kind of rise above it a little bit. And rise above, I mean kind of ascend from a higher consciousness level, maybe the bigger picture level. So you're getting out of that minutia where you're feeling minimized, because that is your interpretation. Realize that emotions all have an interpretation on top of it. So those feelings of being in pain and can oftentimes be disempowering. So you have to say, well, why have I given myself an interpretation of this experience which is disempowering of me? Why is this not igniting a little bit of a flame to utilize untapped areas of my brain, my feelings, my emotions, my involvement, my thinking capacity, to actually think in new corners where I had not before? In other words, the pain that has made you sensitive, how can you then turn that around? In other words, the resistance which you are feeling, the unhappiness, the loss, the grief, kind of working through those stages. Okay, yes, that's a natural thing, but why can't you champion that sword and say that I'm sharpening my sword? The best men who are carving the trees out have the sharpest knives. It's not working harder with a duller knife. It is taking time to sharpen your sword. So when you actually look at it, that you're creating an impeccable perspective for the good, that is, you're setting yourself up for success. So rather than identifying it as painful and maybe weepy and tearful, if this is too much, you need to say, okay, to what degree, do I need to speak with a doctor about this? Could I benefit from, speaking with someone, or antidepressants? And I'm not pushing any medication here, but I'm stating that there's certain fodders within the physical body that if there's a chemical imbalance now, there are things that your doctor can do to assist you. And once again, I'm not advocating any medication. I'm just giving you the facts. And so there are, now newer formulations, which there are for people which are very lighter and can create more of a positive, culture within the mind and help you receive the tools that you're doing and then keep it set in a more positive feeling so that you're upbeat, you're feeling joyful. Anyway, that's not the point of this conversation or this session here today. What we're focusing in is that utilizing the concept of cognitive reframing, and rather than feeling isolated, feeling individualized, feeling liberated, because it is your interpretation which is holding you back. There's something called, a distinguisher. It's how you distinguish your emotions. It's how you interpret things. So if you have a low self-bias, and we're getting deep here, It's fun when we do this. But if you have a negative self-bias, that means you're not going to take advantage of the tools and then feel liberated, feel freed, feel armed with that better sword. In other words, you're ready to fight the battle. You can put it away. It doesn't mean you have to face life with a constant sword. It's knowing that you have earned this, almost like an award for yourself, that now that you have sharpened it, you're making progress. And so in feeling, that you wish, you could go back and correct things, try to use the tool of cognitive reframing and say, wow, thank God I have gotten through that brush, that fog in my life. And thank God I am where we're at. Like, look at more that freedom space, that clarity that you have carved out for yourself. So instead of being in the smog, the smut, the toxic, the heavy darkness that was part of these relationships, look at it as liberating, freeing, that the shackles have, come off. And you can now look at different parts of your life as opportunity and really look at that beauty within, men and women. Men can be beautiful, women can be beautiful. So you need to kind of look at that and then come at it with a softer, more unconditional, positive regard. So look at if you have any negative self-bias, like, negative low self-esteem, and begin to remove that bias from holding yourself back. Oftentimes, we are prejudiced against ourselves. We punish ourselves as a ramification from the previous treatment. So in other words, we're carrying out someone else's job of hurting ourselves when they're no longer there. So look at the ramifications, or I call it the patterns of feeling that are set up neurologically from how you were treated, to always feel that you had to be judged by them, or that you always had to take care of their needs. So it's a switch of pattern. It's a switch of routine. You need to do that pattern interrupt with yourself and begin to get more to that truth. And you will feel a sense that you can go up and do those things, whether it's, if you're feeling that pain of being without relationships, you can better look at what specifically is causing you that feeling that it's a double-edged sword. Because I know I have a number of viewers and clients who I have worked with who have stated the same thing. So it is looking at it, I would say, with a projection of positivity for you, and really seeing what opportunity that you have, and pulling out, and this is getting kind of long, I understand, but to pull out that leader within you, which was shut out or shut down before. So part of you had not been ignited to behave or take care of yourself in a specific way, to stand up stronger in relationships the way that you've never stood up before, to go and expand your circles where you have never united with others before, seeking community or brotherhood or sisterhood in different areas in new ways. So it's causing you to push the boundary for yourself in a new direction. So, removing that self-limiting belief, because oftentimes that is the cause of that feeling of a double-edged sword. Rather than feeling completely liberated and empowered, which is the goal of the channel, we want to get there now. We want to do that today. I want you to take action now in terms of, moving through that pain, because if you're in emotional pain, a negative self-bias, you need to move through that. You need to just step out of it now. Go and take action. Go on your recovery date. Go and do something where you have the feeling of indulging in some interest that you have thought was frivolous before. Maybe you want to go look at classic cars. Maybe you want to go to a museum. Maybe you want to go to, a fabulous coffee place or a fabulous cafe that has different food, a different culture food where you have not been before. Go look at motorcycles. Go look at bicycles. Go look at paints. Go look at fabrics. Go take a walk in nature and see, and then go to a nursery and get yourself some little trees that you can plant that can grow and then you can look to that are stronger and stronger, and see how these parallel you in your life. Even little things. It doesn't have to, be a boatload of money, but it's something that you can do action-wise that speaks to your positive self-conscious that you've got it going on. And when you take that action needs to supersede that mind, I can't do it. So action, as they say, is stronger than words. Action speaks louder than words. So when you feel yourself like the wind is just sweeping you off of your feet and sets you flying, like that song, you know that you are hot on the path to releasing that stopgap on yourself. So you need to belay the inner critic, stop that criticism, shut it down, put it away, get rid of that inner critic and just continue to follow the positive with reckless abandon. In other words, throwing caution to the wind in terms of taking care of yourself. Use the tool of cognitive reframing. Actually see that you're in the clear, you're in the good, you're in the pure, you're in the liberated, you're in the freed and the autonomous. The world is your oyster. And really look at then what that newly means for you. What does that mean for you now in your common phase or your phase of where you are at in your life? It's like taking brutal honesty and removing that denial phase, because if you don't, it's going to be like a sleeping giant where all of a sudden it's just going to come and blow up even worse. So you should actually look at it with gratitude and know that you're releasing the denial, because that oftentimes is part of that feeling of being stuck. So go out and really push for yourself, push the boundaries in terms of what you feel was frivolous, taking care of yourself, your interests, things that you were only on the corner of your eye, looking at before that you might be interested in. Maybe it's magnificent architecture. Maybe you just admire great, photographers, artists. Go and plant yourself in front of these interests. Go to your local bookstore, sit on the ground with 6 books and just leaf through them and absorb. Fill yourself, fill that inner reservoir with the positive that is liberating, and get used to a new feeling. It's going to feel different. Get used to the feeling of being a leader for your own interests and sticking up for your own needs, and give yourself a little tinge or touch of an indulgence, something, whether it's a gourmet veggie dish or a gourmet steak or some new seasoning. Do something that signals to your subconscious that you are on the path, positive, orderly direction thinking, in positive, orderly direction behavior. That it's a signal, and it'll begin with time and experience. It'll begin to accumulate, and that security and that strength and that know-how will become moving through your life, and you will not flinch, you will not flail, you will not feel it's a double-edged sword. You'll see that it's actually the sword of truth, and it's like an invisible sword that people will see within you, that you're standing strong, and they'll see that shine coming off of your aura, off of your presence, because you have made the internal changes that have showed that you have value. It's a very etheric change that you will begin to resonate and begin to honor that change, and then stand, really, I just want to say, in that glory. You will know it, you will feel it, and then others will be attracted and be able to share in more positive life experiences when you are in that great place. It's your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today, and I hope that these videos do help. Please share and please subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support.